The very tragic case of 10-month-old Jacob Crouch, trigger warning. Jacob was just one of 36 children who died in England from child abuse in 2020. So Emma was 4 months pregnant with Jacob when she just come out of a very toxic relationship with his father, Andrew. Andrew was even convicted of assaulting Emma. At 4 months pregnant, Emma goes on the dating app Plenty of Fish, and that's where she meets 38-year-old Craig Crouch. The two immediately hit it off, and this relationship would move at an incredibly fast pace. Soon after the pair began dating, Craig began referring to Emma's unborn child as our baby and our little boy. Emma was so smitten with Craig that she ignored every red flag he threw her way. But Emma's family wasn't buying it, and they knew Craig was not this perfect man he made himself out to be. Craig would often tell these tall tales about how he made a six-figure income, how he was the executive director of a manufacturing company called JCB, how he'd flown the company's helicopter and had become friends with celebrities and politicians. But in reality, Craig was just a forklift driver for the company. Emma's family said you could just tell Craig was trying way too hard to impress them because he would just tell these outlandish, crazy stories. Emma's family said Craig was very arrogant and aggressive. Craig promised Emma an extravagant wedding, a new car, and a new house. So Emma gives birth to a beautiful baby boy on February 20th, 2020, literally at the start of the COVID lockdown. She tells her family she's giving the baby Jacob's surname, Crouch. Gemma instantly allowed this man into her life and let him take the role as her baby's father without even knowing him. Now, her family didn't like this, but there was nothing they could do about it. And not long after having the baby, Craig would begin to show signs of jealousy. He would often tell Emma, you should punish him if he cries for no reason. You shouldn't hold him so much. And Emma would fall in line and do as Craig said. There were even text messages between the couple where Emma had told Craig that Jacob had thrown up. And Craig texted back, you should make him eat it. Stuff it down his throat until he swallows it. And Emma did just that. She forced the baby to eat his own vomit. They would begin abusing Jacob on a daily basis, claiming it was for his own good. But this abuse would become more violent as Jacob got older. Let's not forget, Jacob was just a little baby, and they would punish him for every little thing he did. The pair would often encourage each other to punish the baby. They would work in unison, taking turns, pushing each other to punish him even harder. They wanted to control every move this child made. The pair would even refer to Jacob as the devil, a bad child, a bad seed, claiming the baby was doing these things on purpose to make them mad because he knew what he was doing. But that was just an excuse to make themselves feel better about what they were doing. As Jacob got older and began crawling around, Craig demanded they hit him harder. Craig would even threaten to leave Gemma if she didn't do something extreme about Jacob's bad behavior. Craig would often tell Gemma that Jacob was just pushing him to his limit, and Jacob was doing this on purpose. Craig often claimed Jacob knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to put a wedge between the pair. And if they didn't take care of his behavior now, it would come between them later. But that's how jealous Craig is of Jacob. Now let me just say, their house was so small that if one person was abusing this baby, there's no way the other one didn't see or hear it. So on the night of the last attack, here's what they claimed happened. On the morning of December 30th, 2020, the pair claimed they found Jacob dead in his crib. They claimed they had checked on Jacob all night, and the last time being at 5 a.m., and he seemed just fine, but the paramedics claimed that was utterly impossible. Paramedics who arrived on the scene assessed Jacob, and they automatically noticed he was in the state of rigor mortis, which means he'd been dead for some time and a lot longer than what they were claiming. Now, because their stories weren't lining up at all, the police were called. So little Jacob was taken in for an autopsy. Trigger warning, this is where we discuss the injuries. So Jacob had new and pre-existing injuries that were in different stages of healing. And those injuries tell us an entirely different story of his demise. Jacob had 19 visible bruises on his body. Adding to the devastating list of internal injuries, he had at least 39 rib fractures, some of his ribs completely broken. They were all in different stages of healing, while a number of them were freshly broken in the last few hours he was alive. However, it was another injury that Jacob suffered to his abdomen in his final days that led to his death. Jacob died of something called peritonitis, which is an infection of the lining of the abdominal organs. This is caused by a brutal assault where Jacob had either been punched, kicked, or stomped on, causing a tear in his stomach, which led to a very serious infection that was never treated. Meaning that Jacob would have been in a significant amount of pain and suffering throughout his final days as the infection spread to his other organs, and they began to shut down. But according to doctors, the condition is treatable if taken care of quickly. But sadly, his parents did not seek out any medical treatment at all. They just left him in his crib to suffer and die all alone. Now, according to the pathologist, Dr. Michael Biggs, these could have been only sustained through blunt force trauma such as being kicked, punched, or stomped on with severe force. He also added he normally only sees injuries like this with car crash victims, or those who suffer injuries from a multi-story fall, like falling off the house, a building, or balcony. That's how traumatic this child's injuries were. Jacob's 39 rib fractures were suffered on at least 5 separate occasions. And during all 5 of these occasions, he endured severe beatings. There's evidence that the fractured ribs that were in the state of healing being rebroken by further assaults. It's also stated that Jacob's ribs constantly breaking were the result of an adult's hand squeezing or hitting, stomping, or kicking. So not only were his ribs broken, they were rebroken while in the stages of healing. What kind of a mother would let a brand new man into her life and treat her baby this way? So an investigation immediately began because their stories just weren't adding up. They claimed they found him dead in his crib and that all that night before he was fine. But the autopsy showed he'd been dead for some time, long before they found him. So the police got arrest warrants and arrested both of them on January 15th. Now, following their arrest, police got a hold of their cell phones, and that's how they got a better understanding of their treatment and mindset towards Jacob. Police found the text about bathing him in bleach, forcing him to eat his own vomit. Evidence of months and months of abuse. So during sentencing, the judge said that Gemma had to have been aware of what Craig was doing to the baby the night before he died. The judge said there's no way Gemma did not hear Craig attacking Jacob for the last time on December 29th. Craig had viciously attacked the child, causing these life-threatening injuries, yet Gemma did nothing to help him or to save his life. Jacob, without a doubt, would have been systematically unwell during his final days and hours alive, and any parent with an ounce of care would have noticed this. They would have helped him. Jacob's biological father, Andrew, was absolutely heartbroken because he was never allowed to meet his child. Andrew said, "I will never be able to hug him and celebrate his achievements. You have taken Jacob and all the memories we would have shared away." When the jury came back after 4 days of deliberation, they delivered a guilty verdict for both of the suspects. However, Gemma was not convicted of murder. It was determined she did not unalive her son, but herself, she allowed him to be unalived and did nothing to help care for him or save his life when she had the opportunity. So 33-year-old Gemma Barton was convicted for allowing his death and 1 count of child cruelty. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison for letting her son be tortured and unalived, in which she'll have to serve half of her sentence locked up. Gemma seen all the bruises. She knew Craig was torturing him, and what did she do? She joined in. So I don't know how they figured she didn't unalive him and she only got 10 years. That makes me sick. Gemma could get out within 5 years and have another baby and do this all over again. Craig was convicted of unaliving 10-month-old Jacob, as well as 3 counts of child cruelty. He was sentenced to a minimum of 28 years in prison for his crimes. It's utterly appalling. Jacob's maternal grandmother read a statement. She said, "He was such a happy little lad. He was sitting on the floor crawling about, and I remember he was playing with his granddad's walking stick. We have lost the opportunity to see Jacob grow up. We'll never see him have his 18th birthday, get married, and have children of his own. It will always be heartbreaking when a family loses a baby, but even more gut-wrenching when they are unalived by the ones who are supposed to love and care for them. I feel devastated for Jacob in the short life he had to experience. As a baby brought into the world, he deserved the nurturing a child needs to thrive, and Gemma failed him miserably. Rest in peace, Jacob." I know my videos are hard to watch, but we have to share awareness for these babies. I know it's hard to hear. I make these videos every day, but if we don't speak up, these monsters will continue to walk free with a slap on the wrist. It will never stop. We have to be their voice and tell their story. Sharing these cases is the only way we're going to get laws changed. Protect your child at all costs.